NelsonJoypad.com bring you another original. It's fucking great.
So there I was, running through some backwater NeverWinter graveyard, trying to get some rubbings from a tombstone, minding my own business, not doing anyone any harm. A pack of skeletons climbed their way out of the earth and started to attack me and my companion. It's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but as I savagely cut them down, I can't help but feel that there's some special piece missing from the encounter. Some elemental influence that turns the mediocre into the intense, the okay into the great. That certain je ne sais quoi. I haven't played too many MMOs in my time. I am definitely what you would call a cooperative gamer, but I find that I just don't have the time to sink hundreds of hours into a game. That's not to say that I haven't dabbled. I've enjoyed my time with games like Star Wars The Old Republic, The Elder Scrolls Online, and Star Trek Online, so I wasn't a complete newcomer to the genre of MMOs, but I'm by no means an expert. I will be perfectly honest, and in the spirit of full disclosure, I will say that I have not seen everything that NeverWinter has to offer. I haven't fully explored the end game, but I have spent a lot of time within the Dungeons and Dragons world of NeverWinter, and if you'll indulge me, I'd like to share my thoughts with you. As you can no doubt surmise, NeverWinter is an MMORPG. It was initially released on the PC and has just been ported over to the Xbox One, and it's currently free to play for anyone who has a subscription to Xbox Live, so we can mark that one in the Pro column. NeverWinter begins innocently enough, with what is an admittedly badass opening cinematic before you're thrown into the character creation screen. I would say that it's your standard fare. MMO fans will be happy with the diversity of the options available, while people more geared towards single player RPGs may find it a bit more daunting. There's no shortage of selection, and it took me a good 20 minutes just to make my first character. You begin by selecting your race: human, elves, half-orcs and so on. From there we move on to the class selection: great weapon fighter, hunter ranger and an assortment of wizards and sorcerers, but my favourite was the trickster rogue. Then there's the physical customization. Once again, we see that there's a ton of options available beyond a dozen or so presets. I honestly can't see anyone being disappointed with the options available. That's 2 in the Pro column. Well played, NeverWinter. The story will see you, whoever or whatever you are, wake up after a shipwreck, and this provides the game's basic tutorial for movement, item selection, combat and levelling up. The early enemies are perfect for practicing your attacks, and gave me plenty of time to get used to the character class that I was playing as. It's not as comprehensive a tutorial as games like Star Wars The Old Republic, but an overbearing voice will chat to you throughout the game whenever it decides there's more you need to know. Unfortunately, I received one of these updates whilst I was interacting with a character in game, and as a result, I couldn't hear what either the character or the helpful narrator was saying. It only happened to me a couple of times, so it may have just been bad timing, but I felt like my TV was shouting at me for no good reason. I was playing as a level 12 hunter when I had my first real NeverWinter epiphany. It wasn't the most engaging MMO that I've played, that title belongs to Star Wars The Old Republic, but it seemed to me that NeverWinter isn't intended to be the pinnacle of the MMORPG world. Instead, it's a fantastic entry-level MMO, a game that lets players find their feet and dip their toes into the water, rather than opening the floodgates. The downside to this revelation came to me when I realised that NeverWinter was missing something crucial. Even now, it's not something that I can readily identify. It seems to me that NeverWinter is missing a part of its soul, or at least the charisma of its characters. The voice acting is, to be fair, pretty awful. All of the characters sound like over-the-top pantomimes, which could be an endearing quality for certain individuals, but it seems like every character in the game is attending their very first audition.
It's good to see someone survive the attack on the ship.
While the standards of the voice acting isn't exactly what I would have hoped for, being a largely AAA gamer myself, I have to give Cryptic Studios credit on the amount of voice acting there was. There were no endless text boxes that I was forced to read through in order to get a quest like some RPGs that I've played, so while it doesn't reach the expectation of quality, it certainly has the quantity covered. When you gain enough in-game money, or buy it with microtransactions, you'll be able to purchase a mount. Now I had a standard horse as my mount, but I saw players riding tigers, reptilian beasts, and even a giant spider. I don't know what circumstances brought a saddle to a giant spider, but I know I want one. The mount allows you to reduce the amount of time you'll spend wandering the various areas of NeverWinter. It is essential for the amount of back and forth trips that the game expects you to take. As with other MMOs, the gameplay can be broken down into two separate sections, combat and backtracking. The combat is a lot more involved than other MMOs, with the need to attack and dodge manually rather than having the game decide if a blow lands. I have to admit to really enjoying the combat, sniping enemies from long range with a bow, blasting them with arcane energies, or splitting them asunder with a blade is satisfying in the extreme. I don't like a game where all I have to do is press the attack button and sit back while my character does all the work, and NeverWinter has made the experience much better than some of its MMO brethren. As you level up, you'll unlock points that are used to gain perks and abilities. As with many things within NeverWinter, it doesn't break the mould, but it does fit very well within it. One of the biggest problems I've found with unlocking new abilities is that you can only have 6 main attacks mapped to your Xbox One controller. It meant that once I passed level 25 and had a wide selection of moves, that I had to neglect the old to try out the new. There are obviously fewer options to hotkey attacks and items on a control pad than with a keyboard. It certainly isn't Cryptic Studios' fault, but I felt like I was being hamstrung by the hardware. Now, I pondered on whether or not to judge NeverWinter on its server reliability. I found that I was regularly getting kicked from the game, and for an entire day, whenever I tried to move from one zone to the next, it reverted me back to the title screen and asked me to sign in again. While this was a pain and an annoying issue for me, it is something that I expect will be fixed as time moves on. I mean, it is NeverWinter's first week on consoles, so it's only natural there will be some teething problems. When NeverWinter is at its best is when you take on missions with friends. I did have a problem getting into the same game with a friend of mine, but a quick Google search told me how to change the instance, which allowed us to hook up and get down to the bandit killing in earnest. Playing with a band of well-balanced players kicks the enjoyment factor to NeverWinter up a gear, and the standard loot sharing system works on the bidding for items based on need, greed or pass. To take the fun cooperative gameplay a step further, you can go on group missions designed to be played with a band of adventurers. Holding off waves of enemies in a horde mode was a good test of my character's skill, and assaulting an enemy tower was great fun. These missions are where NeverWinter really won me over. You don't have to be friendly to play with other players in NeverWinter, and can take the fight into the PvP mode. I wasn't as much of a fan of this mode, but that's not to say it's not well rounded. Communication is the key in the PvP, and as with many games, the loner player may get the most kills, but if they don't work as a team, they will lose. As with many MMOs, NeverWinter's graphics aren't great. Animations are jumpy in the extreme, and issues with texture pop and latency dulls down the aesthetic. This is nothing unique to NeverWinter though. With so many characters, players and areas, it's only natural that the game will drop in the looks department. It's the price you pay for the massive multiplayer online game. NeverWinter strikes me as one of the best entry-level MMOs around. It's relatively easy to learn the basics of the world, combat is intuitive and can be exciting. With a wide range of customization options available, it really does cater to the new player, but it has enough depth to satisfy the more dedicated fans. Sadly, the plot is lacklustre and the ability to choose your own dialogue and path throughout the game is almost completely missing. As I navigated the story, I felt like a passenger. I followed a little glowing trail that told me where to go and who to talk to. NeverWinter won me over with its combat system and the amazing large-scale battles of the group missions. It isn't without its faults, but I for one will be hopping back into this game. It's just a shame that you only have 2 character slots. NeverWinter is a game that you should play. It's a great entry-level MMO that has enough punch for dedicated fans. It offers a ton of gameplay and has an excellent character creation tool. The audio and visuals of the game aren't as polished or well defined as I had hoped, and the restrictions and choices within conversations is keenly felt. NeverWinter is missing that one special something that would make it great, but that's not to say you shouldn't give it a go.